Yesterday, Breitbart released damaging audio tapes of Paul Ryan being disloyal to our new president. And today, amidst an uncertain future for the Obamacare repeal bill, Paul Ryan is, in a very subtle way, attempting to fight back. He's using this terminology now, fighting back in this way. He said this: obviously the major components of the bill are staying intact because this is something we wrote with President Trump. This is something we wrote with the Senate committee, and that we wrote it with President Trump. President Trump was co-author is terminology he's used a little bit over the last 24 hours. And of course, we know that the plan is either we pass it or theoretically we have this plan B where if we can't get it passed, then Trump is going to attempt to distance himself from it, minimize the political damage that can be done to him as a result of the failure, and let Obamacare fall apart under its own weight or something to that effect. And Trump seems very willing, or at the very least Steve Bannon seems very willing to let Paul Ryan go down in flames, but it looks like Paul Ryan is going to try to drag Trump into those flames with him if possible.
Well, so there's two parts of this story. First was that unprecedented attack against Paul Ryan on Breitbart. So that was clearly the White House full frontal assault against the Speaker of the House of their own party. Not only did they throw Ryan under the bus with the audio tape and saying he was disloyal to Trump and having all the Trump voters get mad at Paul Ryan, then number two, they said, oh, he bungled this and it's a mess and it's not gonna pass, so it was already done. This version of the Republican healthcare bill will not pass. But number three, they said repeatedly in that article, clearly leaked by Steve Bannon / Donald Trump, that Ryan should not be Speaker of the House anymore.
Yeah.
They went for a kill shot. They're looking to end his career. So now Paul Ryan comes back and goes, it wasn't me. I co-authored this with dumbass Donald Trump. If this thing goes under, it's also Donald Trump's fault.
He also said the Senate leaders too. He threw them to some extent
yes,
under the bus
because
too.
Today the Senate leaders go to the White House, the Republican Senate leaders do, and Donald Trump basically says to them, we're done with this one. This version sucks. Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks were right about it. Okay, maybe you left that part out.
They specifically attacked the House version of the bill, saying that it needs changes. I have a couple quotes that came out of that meeting actually. One advisor to this is a group of senators met at the White House. One advisor to a senator present at the meeting said that acknowledgement was simply that they don't have the votes to pass this in current form. Another senior Republican aide to a senator in the room said the White House is, quote, definitely looking at pretty big changes to the Ryan bill. And
now all of a sudden it's the Ryan bill.
It's hot potato. They're throwing it like to the White House, back to Congress. A senior administration official confirmed that the White House has continued to advocate for changes to the bill. I included this because of our previous conversation yesterday. Changes to the bill that will help secure conservative votes in the House, but also some tailored to moderates concern. And that gets to the narrow tightrope that they have to walk. It's not even a tightrope. I don't know how that you do this. You take a bill that some hate because it's not conservative enough, some hate because it's too conservative, and try to simultaneously make it worse in both regards.
Right.
That's a difficult path to tread.
And convince 535 members that one of these is the option.
Yeah.
This was done on arrival a year ago. I mean, I don't understand how Paul Ryan, knowing very well that these people they could not woo over their districts, and it was an electoral disaster, why he was willing to work with Trump at all.
Yeah.
Like, there's some things you have to take a stand for. You have to be a Lindsey Graham at one moment, and that was it.
Well, no, I hear you, but Naomi, they never had a choice because Paul Ryan and the knucklehead Republicans were the ones who said, what did they do? I think they did 55 votes to repeal Obamacare when they knew that it didn't matter when Obama was president. So now he's stuck. He pretended he was going to repeal it all along, and he had no battle plan for winning over conservatives and moderates at the same time. He had no battle plan for giving all the money to his donors like he planned all along, and screwing over the poor and screwing over the uninsured and the middle class, and still winning elections. He never had a plan.
Yeah.
So we talk about how dumb Donald Trump is and how he bungled this, but Paul Ryan, for all his wonkishness, allegedly, is not that much brighter. I mean, here's the guy who just did a press conference a couple of days ago talking about like, oh, in Obama's version of healthcare, the healthy pay for the sick. Yeah, that's everybody's version of healthcare. That's called health insurance. And he doesn't even recognize it. He's so stupid. He did a press conference like showing how dumb he is. Like he's like, I got a press conference here. Obama thinks 2 + 2 = 4, right? So, and he thought he was brilliant.
Take a look at my PowerPoint.
So and so they've all bungled this because they're bunglers. That's what they do. Now, how are they going to try to thread that needle? But before I get to that, actually, one more fun thing. I like that they're calling it the Ryan bill. Now, when it was first announced, it was TrumpCare.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you remember, Obama at one point said, I don't mind that they call it Obamacare, because when it works, then I'll get credit for it, right? He's like, you'll know it's working when they stop calling it Obamacare. And for a brief while, like during the 2014 elections, they're like, well, I mean, like, oh, Mitch McConnell, he was like, it's not Obamacare, it's Connect in Kentucky.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
And he pretended to be in favor of it, right?
It's also
And it's
not
the most
national,
popular
it's
state. It's the state with the highest enrollment.
That's right, because there's a lot of poor white folks in Kentucky who use, and middle class people who use Obamacare. So now they're like, not TrumpCare, Ryan care. That's how you know it's unpopular. Okay, so how in the world are they going to fix this? So I was right about this yesterday when I thought this was the road they were going to go on. This meeting with the Republican senators and Trump confirms this. So they've got this problem where the moderates say, hey, I need more for prices to be lower for senior citizens, because they're big voters in my districts, and I can't have them being thrown off of insurance, and so I need that to be extended, and I need prices to be lower. Now, on the other hand, conservatives are saying, who are funded by all the donors, are saying, no, we want Medicaid expansion to be cut earlier.
Yeah.
Now, well, that's untenable. You can't have both those things. So you got to choose. And which way is more likely to pass? Well, the Senate Republican plan is choose conservative, screw over the moderates. Well, I mean, there's the filibuster. You can't get 60 votes, right? Like, we don't need 60 votes. That's for idiot Democrats who play by the rules. So the proposal is that Mike Pence, as the head of the Senate, comes in and goes, even though reconciliation, this is the technical way that they would pass this bill so that it only needs 50 votes, is only for budgetary matters, and this is clearly not for just budgetary matters. Doesn't matter. We just ruled that it is. Mike Pence comes in, gavels the session, and goes, I've now decided that everything is budgetary. So in other words, they would kill the filibuster. So the Democrats would be then powerless. Now, when the Democrats even whispered of not following the filibuster in some
limited set of circumstances.
Some limited circumstances, they were like, how dare you, the beloved Senate traditions. Now that they're in charge, they're like, Senate traditions, who cares, idiot Democrats? No, we're gonna end that. And the whole point is, they can afford to lose 2 Republican senators and still pass it, because they have 52. And if they hold the conservatives, which are larger than the moderates, maybe they could squeeze it in. But even so, very, very hard, because there are actually a good number of Republicans. They're not really moderate, they're all right-wingers, right? But Republicans who are basically saying, I've got too many senior citizens in my state. Now, you're telling me this is gonna be a little bit cheaper for 21-year-olds, but some of the 64-year-olds are gonna pay 750% more.
Yeah, 21-year-olds don't vote.
Like, no,
74-year-olds vote.
For them.
Yeah, so they were always gonna lose Susan Collins of Maine. She was never gonna go for these draconian things, but she's among the very few moderates. But there's a whole bunch of guys in the middle, like about 9 or so, who are like, do I really want to lose the next election?
Well, and there's some in the House too, specifically saying that this leaves too many people in my district without health insurance. And if they do go in that direction of making it more conservative, more draconian, that only becomes a more salient argument. It can't necessarily get to the 21 or 23 Republicans in the House you need to tank it, but the worse you make it for senior citizens, for the poor, that could potentially balloon that number.
Are there going to be any Democrats? Is there going to be a McCaskill or a Joe Manchin who say that they don't want a filibuster in the Senate? They've come out and said that they.
So far they're holding the line, and every Democrat says they're opposed to this Republican proposal. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to stay opposed.
That's true, yeah.
So they could probably lose 3 Republicans pretty easily, maybe more. I would be shocked if Manchin didn't flip at the end and vote with Trump, because Manchin's basically a Republican at this point. In fact, he helps Republicans more than Democrats, because he'll flip on crucial votes and then give them cover and go, it was bipartisan. My Democratic friend, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, is a coward and decided, oh, Trump won my state by too wide a margin, and so I'm gonna run towards daddy, is gonna probably go over, and hence they could lose at least 1 more vote. But I mean, be careful what you wish for. Even if they won that, which I don't, at this point, it's too early to tell. Don't write anything in stone. I don't think they're gonna be able to do it because remember, they're bunglers. So I think that unless someone who really knows what they're doing takes charge, corrals all these idiots, and tells them to shut up and leads in a very straight line, I mean, and threads that needle right. I don't know that the Republicans have a guy like that. But even if they win, well, then there might be a bloodbath for them electorally next time around. I mean, we're talking about Kentucky, right? Rand Paul is the one pushing for the most draconian cuts. Right. Kentucky uses Obamacare more than any other state does. Yeah. So then all of a sudden, oops.
Kentucky, West Virginia, Arkansas, those are the states. When you look at Tennessee.
So the problem is it would be a literal bloodbath too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number of people who will die as a result of it.
Unfortunately, and that's why we don't root for their failures, because their failures affect so many millions of Americans, and we don't want that to happen. We want them to basically lose on the policy so that you guys don't have to deal with the actual real life consequences. So my final proposal is, okay, the first one was called, we'll call it Ryan Care, okay, so there goes Paul Ryan and his career. Can you call the Senate one Cruise Care? And he is the guy saying we don't have to follow the rules, let's just get 50 votes. Great, let's call that Cruise Care, kill that one and his career, and then the combined thing will be called TrumpCare.
Wipe him out.
That's right.
1, 2.
And let's finally, so what I described as Plan B. Plan C that Trump has been hinting at the whole time is, oh, well, why don't we just leave Obamacare and let it fall of its own accord?
Okay.
Okay, deal. Because he's drank his own Kool-Aid, or Steve Bannon's Kool-Aid. He really thinks that Obamacare is about to explode at any second and it's gonna be a mess, when it's actually a fine-tuned piece of legislation. It's not anywhere near perfect, and we all got a ton of issues with it, but it is not about the collapse. There is no such thing. That's totally made up. The premiums are too high because they never put a public option in there. They never wound up checking the health insurance companies. It's got a host of problems, but it's not gonna collapse. That's not how it works, right? So if they think, oh, it's okay, we'll show those Democrats, leave Obamacare as it is. The corporate media has multi-million-dollar anchors. We have you guys. Go to tytnetwork.com/go, and you can help hire investigative reporters that'll do real journalism.